Welcome on the Gospel Spice podcast, where you are invited to taste and see that the Lord is good. Gospel Spice is your Christ-centered podcast infused with in-depth biblical flavors and sprinkled with a dash of French culture, guaranteed to spice up your relationship with God. I'm your host, Stephanie Roussel, and here is today's episode. Amanda Jenkins, welcome back on Gospel Spice.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
It's so good to have you back. I've been looking forward to us kind of having a long distance cup of tea or coffee and just catching up on life. What do you drink, by the way? Do you like tea, coffee? What's your drink of choice?
I am an iced tea all day addict. That's what I am. It's not even the caffeine. I drink decaf now. It's just this motion that I'm addicted to.
Right. And you put any flavor in your tea? Any spices? Or just plain black tea?
Yeah.
Stevia.
Mm-hmm. And my kids tease me that I walk around with stevia in my purse. So I bring my own everywhere I go.
Yep, a little bit of sweetness. So hot Texas, iced tea, hot Texas, that's a good combo, huh?
Yeah, Texas is crazy. Texas is 100
Tell me, I don't know Texas a whole lot. Tell me more.
It's shocking. Like it is something that you have to acclimate quick to, or you'll be a miserable person. So I'm just kind of, I'm like, I like saunas. We just do the sauna every time we step outside. That's what we're doing here.
Right.
So,
and you grew up in Minnesota, didn't you?
Minnesota.
Okay, a little change there.
A little different. Although I would take the heat over the snow now, any day. Okay. Any day. Done with snow. Officially done with snow. God would have to really put a calling on my life to return me to snow.
Yeah. So coming up on a year in Texas, is that right?
Two.
Oh, okay.
It's been 2. Yeah,
it's been 2 years. Okay, time flies.
2 years this summer.
How has family been? How are we doing? June 2023. How's your family doing?
Yeah, overall really well. The move is what a move is for high schoolers. It's really difficult. So we did that. It helped because it was so clear it's what we were supposed to do. So it's not that we felt like, oh gosh, what have we done? But you do feel like you're launching kids into just all the difficult things of reestablishing themselves and making new friends. And especially for we moved when our third born was entering her junior year of high school. And so it was just really challenging. And it took a lot of prayer and trusting, even, for her. And she's come out of that really well. She just graduated. She's glad to have graduated, but had some sweet stuff too. And the Lord showed up for her, which was cool to see. So, but it was hard. Moving is hard. The rest of them are doing great. College kids are doing great. They were kind of ready to launch as we moved here. So all that went.
Everyone home for the summer? Yeah. Everyone home now though. How is it going from family of 4 to family of 6, right?
Yeah, it's good when you are not in the middle of a writing deadline. So for the first, I just turned in a book. And so for the first couple of weeks, I was like, everybody be quiet. I love you. Welcome home. Be quiet. So I'm looking forward to a summer now where there isn't this kind of overriding deadline. And then Dallas is shooting, so he takes his work obviously outside of the house. But it's good. And one of our kids is working on the show, and our second born just started doing social media for the show. So it's kind of like a little bit of a family affair sometimes too, what we have to do. So, but it's good. We're going to get in our family time and our little vacation spots here and there. So it'll be a good time.
And then you're downsizing to family of 3 in the fall. Is that going to be weird?
It will be weird, although it will be a family of 4 because our college kid is working on the show and staying with us for the next year. So we are just trading out who our 4th is as one goes off to college and one comes home from college. So yeah, there's no real way. All of my friends are doing this differently. All the kids are, some are getting married right out of college. Some are going on missions. it's an interesting thing that there's not one way of doing it, like when you're little and you're all kind of on a parallel track. Adults do what they're going to do. So it's interesting.
It's going to be your first time as the only woman in the house.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Although I got a lot of male energy in myself. I'm the one who runs the show around here at the house. So it's,
yeah, of course you do. Yeah.
It works fine. It works fine. But yeah, a lot of male energy, and they do interact with each other differently than the girls and I do. And so that is kind of funny that they go a little more, not in a bad way, but even just the normal way that they talk is like, all right, everybody, quiet it down, because the boys are more animated, I would say, than the girls are.
Are you the peacemaker in the family? You don't I mean, you love a good fight, right? I mean, from what I can see of you, but I guess Dallas does too. Yeah. You guys are a family of fighters in a good sense. That's a compliment.
You know what? It's your strength is your weakness is your strength, right? So, but yeah, I'm the peacemaker. I'm the one who will break peace, and I'm the one who will make peace, right? So if like I think something has to be dealt with, or Dallas and I both, like, we deal with things right away, we deal with things head on. But I'm, if things are not at a good place, once that's done, I'm the one that's making sure we get to a good place. Yes, that's true.
Yeah. That's a more feminine trait, maybe, or personality. I see that in Eden. I've always heard you guys say that Eden is you in some ways, but I've also heard you say you identify with Peter most. So it's an interesting dynamic. So every time I see Eden, I'm like, oh, hi, Amanda.
Yes. Yeah. Eden is how Dallas writes a lot of me. But that part of Eden where she's kind of no nonsense, or, I do that in a very Peter-like way. I have learned as I've gotten older to think things through a little bit more. Right? Like that comes with age. You learn how to like think through and choose your words. I don't get as mad about things as I used to. I'm not as spicy as Peter is initially as I used to be. I used to be really quick on the draw, and now I'll be quick, but like I'll think for a minute, so like you kind of see God doing that in you as you get older, like, just wait a second, just take that to me for a second. Like he kind of gets in there. But yeah, so I go between the two for sure.
Yeah. I've always been puzzled, with James and John being the sons of thunder, because to me, Peter is, I've always read him as more thunderous than the other two. So I'm like, okay, if they are the sons of thunder, I really wonder what kind of nickname he would get, right? I relate to Peter most too. So
he got bestowed the beautiful name, right? The Rock, which to me is so cool of the Lord, that he would take the most at times, the thing we're the least like, and then he makes us what we're not. So I love that. I do the Sons of Thunder. I do, even I'm sometimes like, you really wanted to call down like thunder and lightning bolts on people's heads? Like it deserved a nickname. Like it's a little over the top. even for someone who appreciates a good fight, I thought that was a little over the top. So it's warranted.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I love that about summer, that we can just be a family again and re-enter into the normal things of life and just be ourselves. You were saying that Dallas has a few more weeks of shooting, right? A little over halfway?
There's a lot. We still have half the season left. So today is their last day in Texas shooting. And then in a week, he goes to Utah, and he'll have to finish out the season in Utah.
Oh, wow. How does that, how does his, well, I guess, having filmed 2 seasons now in Texas, how has that changed dynamics? What's the family like when he goes to work and then comes back, and then maybe comes back every night or weekends? I don't know how that works. And then when he leaves for extended periods, him leaving, his reentry, like how's all of that?
Messy. We're getting better at it. And you used a word, his re-entering. We call it reentry. We've always really struggled with reentry. So when he used to shoot and he'd be away for a couple of months and we would visit, when we could, that was really hard because I would be in kind of a rhythm with the kids, and then he would kind of come back in and mess up the rhythm. Which of course, because you have to have a rhythm altogether, right? And so you have this kind of rocky reentry. And we did that very poorly for a lot of years. And then we started to get more intentional about that and to say, okay, rather than reacting to these moments, why don't we have conversations ahead of time and go, okay, what doesn't work for us upon reentry? What are you expecting? What are you needing? So we got really intentional about that. And so reentry got easier and we kind of mastered that. And then we moved to where he's down the street every day, coming back at like 10 p.m., 11 p.m., 1 a.m. In out is much of a challenge and presents different, issues than being away for a couple of months. So now we're having to figure that out and go, okay, how are we going to make this work? And what's bothering, trying to be intentional is what we've learned. But it's also really good because we see his face and, we, when he's off at a decent time, which is like 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. usually, then we can actually sit down and talk about the day, or kids can show him something, or, so that's good. And they're older. So a lot of them are having their own social thing, or they'll be out and dad comes home and he's like, where are the kids? It's like, oh, they had plans. So it's a funny reversal sometimes. So doing both in one season is, I don't know, that's new. So now he's been in and out, and then he's going to go, and it's like all of our skills we're going to need to bring to bear on how this all works. But for the most part, we try to remain very intentional. So we avoid, the frustrations that just inevitably come. They just do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it will be interesting because as your kids are getting older, I'm assuming, in my experience with my 2 college kids, there's a lot less active parenting going on and a lot more just real relationship development. So that looks different. So the burden on the mom is different, isn't it? So yeah, that'll be interesting to see how you go through that season with your kids as your friends. We were talking before we hit record that our kids are becoming our friends when they grow into adulthood, and that's a fun season. So maybe I'm praying that over the next few weeks, as Dallas is gone, you get to experience the friendship with your children in fresh new ways, and that he misses out, and then he gets to catch up on them when he gets home.
Yeah. And we are really intentional about when we're all going to be together, what are we going to, do? How are we going to spend that time? But no, it is really different having older kids that don't require the physical labor of young ones. I've got a couple of friends whose husbands also work on the show, and they still have littles. And I have a lot of compassion for that, because just the physical picking up, down, bath time, bedtime, all those things, doing that always by yourself, I think is harder, honestly. So that the kids are older, we're like, okay, we have a week. What are we going to go do? And where are we going to go shop? Or what are we going to go see or hike or whatever? All that is really fun. And then God's really been impressing on me in this time that my job is to grow those relationships, and disciple is the word that he's been using. Like, your job is to disciple them. Like that's your job. And that's a good job. Like, it's hard sometimes, but it's a really good job, and it's a meaningful job, and there's so much purpose in it. So that's been interesting too, as they've gotten into this next season, to go, okay, you're not their physical keeper as much as you are now my friend calls it their consultant. I'm probably a little more controlling than my friend. I don't love consultant. I like overseer, but something in there. Yeah. But it's been neat to transition into this season, and easier in film life to have older kids for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So discipling our young adult children, what does that look like? How do you do that? I'm curious because I got 2 of those at home. Let's trade tips. What are you doing to be intentional in discipling your 22, 20-year-old, 18-year-old kids?
Yep, that's it. 22, 20, 18, 16. Not in a, we've never been good at, nightly devotions at the table. That's not quite how we do things. I know a lot of families do. We have kind of constant conversation in our house. Everyone in my house talks a lot. So there's that. That makes it easier. If you have quieter kids, you kind of have to be more intentional about conversation, right? Sometimes we're like, everybody just play the quiet game for a second in our house. But so discipling comes so organically because they're always talking. Actually, I remember early when I was parenting, my mom said, let your kids talk, even when it's about, dumb things like their toys or their favorite movie character or things that don't seem to really matter. Let them talk, because if you let them talk about things that don't matter, they'll continue talking when things do matter. And so we just did that. We just always talked. And so they're still talking. And so the discipling opportunities are coming just in the course of natural conversation, where we're just God and what he thinks and how we think in response to what he thinks. That's just always a part of the conversation in our household. So that's what it looks like for us. I do have friends that are super intentional about studying a book together. Or, we do a chapter a week or whatever, things like that.
Yeah.
We are trying for the first time to memorize a whole book of the Bible as a family over the course of the year. So we're giving ourselves some room.
Which one did you pick?
It's Romans 8. So
that's really
we're
cool.
doing a verse a week-ish. I think we're all a little behind because we just went through a bunch of graduations and a bunch of other stuff. So we'll get back on it. But so we're doing that, trying to be intentional about that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for giving permission not to be the kind of family that has, family devotions around the table. It was never really our vibe either. And there is that idea that if you're the good Christian family, that's what you should be doing. But you know what? Nope. There's all sorts of ways to do, it's interesting because it's a theme in your life where you share how earlier in your life you thought that Christianity had to look a certain way, and you've moved away from that, and that has created so much growth. So there we go. That's you putting into practice, what you've learned.
Yes, our kids, if we opened a book like some of my sweet friends do, which I do oftentimes, I'm like, we are doing this wrong when I see some other families that are more structured, and are more like, I'll just tell you, there are times when we're out at a restaurant where we sometimes forget to pray because we're in the middle and it's loud and then I'll be with like another family that I know never forgets to pray. And I'm like, everybody bow, you still feel like there's a right way and we don't always do it the right way. But God is a topic every day in our house. So we are much more ebb and flow. We're not as structured, open to chapter 3, answer the questions. We've never done that well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But again, I think it's the permission that there is no right or wrong way. It's just following his guidance for each family style. And we each have our own styles. So yeah,
for sure. God is gracious.
Amen to that. We need his grace. Yeah. And actually, there's so much danger in working out of our area of strength rather than trusting him with the unfinished business that we have in our own lives. So trusting him to work through our children when we're not doing it perfectly, I think that's the heart of parenting.
Well, yeah. And I do think the thing about older kids, and we talked about this a little before we started officially talking, but there is this thing where with littles, you can kind of micromanage them more. And, before bed, we read a book and we're going to read one about Jesus, and you have so much more control when they're little, even though it's harder physically. As they get older, things that we can't impact in the same way, something that we see them struggling with, something that's hurting them, something that, they're not getting yet. There's, they're slow to understand. It's like, you just can't impact those things. And God's been really putting on my heart, like, It's just not your job to do the heart things like those. That's my job. My job is the heart thing. Your job is the conversation. Your job is the pointing to me. Your job is the being there when they cry. That's your job. You can't impact inside the way that you could have cleaned up a room or tucked them in. You can't do that in the same way and impact the inside in the same way. And that's been both hard and also really cool, because then as I'm backing off, even emotionally, because I can't actually impact it. So it's really just my process, whereas I'm backing off and surrendering it to the Lord, and then to see him do the thing in their lives. And none of it is new. My mom's been saying this for years. She's like, oh, you never stop being a mom. And I'll do something that will worry her. And I see that it's worrying her. And I'm like, Mom, it's okay. I got it. Now I'm watching my kids go, Mom, it's okay. I got it. And, every mom since the dawn of time has had to do this, but actually going through the motions of releasing them to the Lord is like, it's not for the faint of heart, but watching God show up in it is also really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And how have you watched them grow in their own faith? I know you've been pretty transparent with them, with the Chosen and everything that's been going on. How has that played into the family discipleship you've been having with them the last, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah. Well, we do make them a big part of the process. We have to, like, it's, otherwise we would have too much separate, right? Because Dallas and I have so much work to do all the time that it's been cool that the kids can come along and be a part of it. And even now have jobs. 2 of my kids have jobs on the show. So all that's cool, but it's also us being changed through it, talking about our struggles, apologizing to one another, God convicting and course correcting us as we're trying to adjust to the craziness. We're doing all of that out loud with our kids. So I apologize a lot to my kids. We share still appropriately. They're still our kids. We don't just say all of the things that are put on our hearts or burdening us. But yeah, the older that they get, the more we're talking about the struggles. We just came through a week that was really weird in social media, and a lot of attacks on the show and a lot on us personally. It was a lot. And our kids.
I'm so sorry. I was just watching it and I'm like, people, get a grip already. I felt like you guys really do not need this on top of everything else.
Well,
I have no words.
It kind of came out of the blue, but our kids saw it first. So because we're hand to plow, we're not paying as close of attention to what's happening out in the world. We have now people who work for us who do that, and they kind of handle that. And so it was actually one of our kids that was like, hey, are you guys aware of what's going on? We're like, wow. So real life opportunities to then talk about theological issues and issues of love and kindness and truth and all of those things are presenting themselves on such a regular basis that I am so thankful for the kids' age at this point, that it's not that my focus is bathing them and getting them in bed, that it's like they know what we're dealing with. They have opinions about how to deal with it. That, they have jokes that they tell in the middle of it that make us laugh. And, that we're all just kind of experiencing it together has been a great part of the season of life that it all came in. So and the kids tell us when we need to stop talking about it for a minute. They're like, oh, okay, we don't want to hear about the Chosen anymore. We're like, oh gosh, you're right. Because we're both working. Our relationships are within it. Our external challenges, come. And so sometimes we need the kids to go, oh, shut up already. Let's talk about something else. We're like, yes. Oh my gosh, let's talk about something else. So that's great. It's all, we're all doing it together.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about something else. 25 years of marriage. You're celebrating that this week. Yes, highs and lows. And my husband and I are celebrating 25 next month. So I'm right there with you.
What are you doing? What are you doing for the big 25th?
Ooh, we're going to Israel.
Oh, that's really good.
I'm so excited. He's been, I've never been. I've never been. I mean, like, I'm a Bible teacher with a focus on first century Jewish culture, and I've never been to Israel.
That's an awesome choice. Yes, ours is a little different. We are going to Fort Worth.
Okay.
But I feel like I'm really excited.
Tell me more. What's happening?
We're getting out of our first century Israel set.
No joke, right?
We're gonna go do some fun things, not in first century Israel. But I'm jealous of you. That's a good one. That's a really good one.
We've been actually, this was supposed to be, we had saved up, and this trip was going to be our son's high school graduation trip in April of 2020. Did not happen, obviously. That did not happen. So we just been, and actually we're taking our daughter on our trip. So it's our 25th anniversary, but she's tagging along. So it's going to be fun. It's so much fun. Yes, you spend all year in first century Israel. So you're going to Fort Worth. That's interesting. Any highlights you're looking forward to? What?
Listen, Dallas and I love eating out and talking. That's what we love.
That's the French in you. I'll claim that. That's the French in you.
Girl. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. He went to Italy with the team a few years ago, and he was like, oh my gosh, we just sat and we talked, and they kept bringing us food, and then we would talk he was like hours. I'm like, that is our jam. That is what we like to do. So that is what we're doing. And we've made our restaurant reservations, and we've looked at the menus, and that's what we're doing. Eating and talking and walking. Walking is the other thing we love.
Well, you're going to have to walk all that food off.
So, yes, God graciously gave us those two loves. We eat and we walk. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And now, a brief message from Gospel Spice.
Did you know that Gospel Spice has a library of in-depth Bible studies available online for free? Discover our previous podcast studies on your own or with friends, and enjoy exclusive content that includes listening guides for each teaching episode, study questions, verses to memorize, tips, and more. Just visit gospelspice.com and click on the Studies tab. Now back to the podcast.
Now, back to the video.
Thank you so much for watching today's episode. Merci. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and click that bell icon so you are the first to know when we release a new video or episode. Also, would you please consider helping us reach new people with the good news of the spice of the gospel by leaving a 5-star review for the Gospel Spice podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, iTunes, Google, etc. Finally, share and follow us on social media to spread the word of Gospel Spice. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to tune in our podcast with new episodes every Friday. I'll see you in our next video very soon, right here. Merci.